بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أحمده وأصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد. Today, what I want to talk about is so important. It's going to be, for some people, it's going to be the most important conversation they listen to in their life. This is something that will change your paradigm. I'm not talking about something small. I'm talking about something big that is happening in the world right now. There is a crisis. But before I talk about this crisis, I want to start off by showing you a picture, and then I'm going to make some introductory remarks, and then we're going to really get into it, because I'm very sure by the end of this video, you're going to be like wanting to do sujood. You're going to be wanting to thank Allah. Your iman will increase, I think. So let us do this. This is a globe that was developed by Muslims about 200 years ago or so to look at the direction of the Qibla. But anyway, let's move on. So let me start by this picture over here. This is a picture of the universe taken by Planck. And this is what we're going to discuss, the implications of this picture. But I also want to start with something very interesting about this picture. And that is that if you look at this picture, if you look at the yellow spots and the red and orange spots versus the blue spots, which are cold. So the universe clearly has some spots that are hot and then some not so hot. And we're going to talk about why that is and what that means and why that challenges the entire foundation of physics. It challenges the entire foundation of physics. I'm going to explain that today. But if you look at this picture, you'll see that it seems to spell the name of Allah. Alif, and then lam, lam, and then ha at the end. Alif, lam, lam, and then ha at the end. Now, generally, when people will look at a picture or patterns, they can usually see anything you're looking for it. If you look at like a prayer rug, you'll find many designs there, right? You look at the clouds, you might find the name of Allah in the cloud. Is it meaningful or is it not meaningful? Are you really seeing what you think you're seeing, or is it just random? Well, over here, I'll just start by saying this, and then we'll come back to this after I explain everything. This is the entire picture of the universe as we know it. And we're not looking at a piece of the carpet if we're praying, or piece of a pattern within something larger. We're looking at the whole. And the whole seems to spell the alif, lam, lam, ha, Allah. Now, this is not the big deal. But it may become a big deal when you add everything else that we're going to discuss today and everything else I'm going to show you today, that why this picture itself is significant. Why are these pictures significant? And what do they mean? Okay, so we're going to be kind of discussing this issue today, inshallah ta'ala. Let me start by mentioning the whole world of physics, the whole foundation of physics, the whole science of physics is in crisis. It's in absolute shambles. People don't realize this because NASA and the scientists are like hush hush about this. Many scientists are and many scientists are not, but definitely NASA and some of the movers and shakers are like, okay, this is not how it's supposed to be going. Meaning this is not what they expect in the field of physics. And I'm going to explain that. And by the way, this is not my only video. Today I'm going to explain what they're not telling you at the macro level of the universe. Inshallah, in the next videos or in one of my upcoming videos, I'm going to explain to you that what they're not telling you at the micro level, at the subatomic level of physics. Okay, so today I'm going to discuss the macro level. Now, let me start by what this man says.
In our universe, we have two great theories. God, in some sense, has a left hand and a right hand, the theory of the big and the theory of the very small. The theory of the big is relativity. It gives us black holes and big bangs and things we can see with the naked eye in outer space. Then there's the quantum theory, the theory of the atom. Now the juncture between the two, that's when all bets fail.
And it actually is split into two giant sides, the relativity side for the large and the quantum side for the small. And we haven't been able to unify all these things back together again.
There is a crisis in cosmology.
Because the quantum field theory, it says there's this vast amount of energy in the quantum vacuum. If you do a simple-minded application of that to general relativity, it tells you the universe should be accelerating an incredible number of orders of magnitudes faster than it is.
Usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. That is 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science.
So the field of physics is in a crisis at the macro level, at the micro level. But today we're discussing only the macro level. And the reason that they are in a crisis is because they don't have Quran. They don't have the guidance. They can't see things through the lens of the Quran. So let's look at another gentleman.
I have good news and bad news. Bad news first. 2 years ago, we reported on the crisis in cosmology. Since then, it's only gotten worse. And actually, the good news is also that the crisis in cosmology has actually gotten worse, which means we may be onto something.
But it appears to be in all sorts of trouble. For decades, it's been predicted that we would find supersymmetry, a set of parallel particles for all we currently understand to exist. It was supposed to be the solution to many inconsistencies and deep puzzles of our current theory. 10,000 scientists collaborated to build the Large Hadron Collider to find the evidence. But year has followed year and no evidence of the predicted supersymmetric particles has been found.
So as you can see, the whole field and the science of physics is collapsing on itself. One of the things that we're going to discuss today, because it has to do with the macro level, and that is, interestingly enough, called the axis of evil. Okay, so what is the axis of evil? I'm going to just read it straight from Wikipedia because I'm not making things up. This is reality. This is what science has come to. And this is how science is beginning to fall on itself. But it is also doing something that the Quran predicted would happen. Literally, what the Quran predicted would happen. The axis of evil is a name given to the apparent correlation of the plane of the solar system and aspects of the cosmic microwave background, CMB. So in other words, we have our solar system and the rest of the universe. For some reason, there is an anomaly in the universe, that there's a correlation, a relationship, a pattern, something is going on between this specialness, listen to what I'm about to say, between the specialness of our solar system and the rest of the universe. It's like the whole universe is facing Earth. The whole universe is facing the plane of axis of our solar system. This is an established fact from around the world. And this is what we're going to look into. And that's how we're going to study ultimately that name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala written in the background of the cosmic radiation, which is the whole universe sending or the radiation coming to Earth. Okay, so just let's continue on this. The anomaly appears because obviously for a scientist it's going to be an anomaly. Why? Because a scientist doesn't want, this will become clear as we go forward. The anomaly appears to be to give the plane of the solar system, and hence the location of the Earth, great, what? Great significance than might be expected by chance, a result that has been claimed to be evidence of the departure from the Corpuscan principle, as assumed in the concordance model. Now let me explain to you what that means. If we have a universe, the Earth is not in a special place. And if the Earth is not in a special place, then that means what? If the Earth is not in a special place, that also means something else. It means that if you take any part of the universe, any portion of the universe, if I take a portion of the sky and another portion of the sky, they're basically both going to show relatively the same amount of things. The same amount of mass is what will be shown. But what we're discovering is this is not the case. This has been the scientific thinking even up to now. But the evidence for the last 3 major experiments, which we're going to talk about, the evidence of the last 3 experiments has shown over and over again that the idea that the Earth is not in a significant place, number 1, and the idea that if you take any part of the universe, it'll be just all homogeneous. It's all just random. If there's random things everywhere, it's random things is everywhere. Then if you take any part, if you take 1 square inch of sky here and you take 1 square inch of sky here and everything is random, you'll get around the same amount. But this is not what we're finding in the universe. So let others who are better at explaining this, explain this to you. Let me share with you some more about this, because this is the universe lines up along the axis of evil coincidence. Now, I don't know what it is with physicists, NASA scientists, but they like to always give things in the universe these dark names, like the black hole, dark energy, dark matter, and the latest of them is the axis of evil. Now, it may have happened because President Bush was giving a speech about axis of evil in 2004, and then this is when the word was coined. But there's an axis of quote-unquote evil across the universe. Okay, and that axis of evil is what we're going to talk about today. And then when you understand the importance of the axis of evil in the universe, and that we seem to be sitting in a very special place in the universe. When you understand this, then you will understand that why then someone can say even the name of Allah in the background of the radiation must be, or could be, I'll allow you to decide, could be something special. Now let's continue.
We became. Now we know that the Earth is just one of perhaps 1 trillion planets in one of the hundreds of billions of galaxies in the observable universe, and there is nothing special about our place. Or is there? Probably there isn't. Astrophysicists and cosmologists are really fond of epic names. The Great Attractor, Eridanus Supervoid, the Sloan Great Wall, and now this axis of evil in the cosmic microwave background, or CMB for short. And if it actually exists and it's not some statistical fluke or an artifact of observations, it could become an issue for modern understanding of the universe, if it exists. Let's find out what this anomaly might actually be, and also talk about the cosmological principle and the CMB itself, and hence. Another very important aspect is the cosmological principle. It states that the universe is homogeneous and isotropic. Homogeneous means that there are no special places in the universe, but on a very large scale. Obviously, the Earth is different from Jupiter, and our region of the Milky Way is different from its central region. There is some non-uniformity even on large scales. Galactic clusters are different from almost empty voids. But anyway, on the largest scales, the density of matter is about the same everywhere, so the universe is homogeneous. Anisotropic means that there are no special directions. Whichever direction we look from at a certain point, the universe looks the same. It would also look the same from every other point in the universe. Let's look at these two things separately. The figure on the left is homogeneous but not isotropic. One region is the same as the next one, but there is a special direction. And looking, let's say from here, we would see a different picture. Whereas on the right, being in the center, no matter where we look, we would see the same direction, but certain regions are different. So today it's widely accepted that the universe is both homogeneous and isotropic, and if it turned out to be not the case, and let's say that the universe had some special direction, it could be a big problem for modern cosmology. So this axis of evil might prove that the universe is actually anisotropic. So what? We will have to scrap the Big Bang Theory and everything else? Well, let's not jump to any conclusions right away, and uniformly. And how uniformly? This is a simulated view of a whole sky CMB map of Holmdel-Horn antenna that was used to discover the cosmic microwave background. Our galactic plane is in the middle. Without it, it's just a single color. Great, looks homogeneous and isotropic, just what we need. But I've already shown images like this one. Such a uniformity of this map is the result of very low resolution of the equipment in the 60s. Every next mission created the map of significantly better resolution. This is the map from the most recent mission, the Planck Observatory. This doesn't look too uniform. But such a variety is an exaggeration to show CMB fluctuations or differences in temperature. The actual difference is on the order of 1 part in 100,000 across the sky. These fluctuations are believed to be relics of regions of varying density that later formed into stars and galaxies. So the fluctuations are very small and the CMB is very uniform, which is very important for the cosmological principle. But the anomalies. CMB anomalies that sort of don't fit what we expect based on modern cosmology, sort of. And let's first talk about dipole anisotropy. The universe has to be the same in every direction or isotropic. So anisotropy means that it does have a special direction. To study the CMB, scientists use the multipoles. They represent the different angular scales. The monopole is the whole sky at 2.725 Kelvin. Dipole is basically the sky in 2 halves. Quadrupole is 4 parts, octupole is 8, and so on up to several thousand. Scientists study temperature variations at specific scales. This is the dipole anisotropy map. This image shows us that one half of the sky is slightly cooler than the other one. The difference is only several millikelvin, but it's still measurable. Looks like it turns out there is a special direction. But actually there is no anomaly in the CMB itself. Parts of different multipoles are supposed to have random orientation, and most of them do, but not all of them. Looks like 2 of the following harmonics, quadrupole and octupole, are aligned with each other. Kinda like along some axis with a small difference of only a few degrees along the axis of evil. This is a 2005 study about this anomaly, and it's even called the axis of evil. The chance of such an alignment is very small, but that's not all. The axis divides the sky in halves, and one half is again a bit cooler than the second half. This time the difference is even more minuscule, only several microkelvin. And now the weirdest part. These 2 a bit different halves, and the quadrupole and the octupole, are aligned with the ecliptic plane of our solar system. Again, it looks like our universe has a special...
Just notice what he said. The axis of evil is aligned with the plane of our solar system. This will become more clear. A lot of things will become more clear as you listen to this. And if there are parts you're not understanding, it's okay. It'll become more clear as you understand this. And then you can listen to this and then do your own research also.
Direction, which contradicts the cosmological principle. And part. These 2 a bit different halves, and the quadrupole and the octupole, are aligned with the ecliptic plane of our solar system. Again, it looks like our universe has a special direction, which contradicts the cosmological principle, and this axis of evil even hints at the special position of our solar system in the universe. And that's against the Copernican principle, which states that there is nothing special about our place in the universe. Were people thousands of years ago somewhat right after all? Physics. This is what a synthesized view of the whole sky using data spanning the range of all light frequencies detected by Planck looks like. Well, it's far from this. We can still see a familiar pattern of the CMB at the top and at the bottom, but the significant part is covered by our galaxy and other sources. Using precise observations at specific wavelengths and special algorithms, scientists are able to subtract unnecessary radiation, so that only the CMB remained in the image, but obviously it's not that seamless, and there are even separate studies on how this might affect the final result. Sachs-Wolf effect plays a bigger role on larger scales, specifically on those where we observe anomalies. For instance, this study shows that subtracting Sachs-Wolf effect significantly reduces the anomaly.
Just as more examples, axis of evil, that thing that goes across the entire universe, the anomaly across the entire universe that's in the same plane as our solar system. Axis of evil warps cosmic background. Okay? A mysterious pattern seen in the cosmic microwave background. Now, the deception, part of the deception comes that they're not telling you, they're telling you it's an anomaly. What they're not telling you, what is the result of that anomaly. And the result of that anomaly is that the Earth is in a special place, which will be made clear to you, inshallah, in just a little bit. But again, when you look at this anomaly, when you study the axis of evil, you will find that particularly when you do a large scale analysis of it, which is the octupole is the largest of it, you see the name of Allah. Okay, let's continue. So now these people, they find it hard to explain why there's such everything is not uniform in the universe. There's no homogeneity in the universe. So they have to explain this experiment that they've now done 3 times, spent 30 years doing it 3 times, and they keep coming with the same results. And part of it is saying your view of the universe that you've known till now has been all wrong.
The quadrupole and octupole. We don't know physically what the explanation is for this, but it certainly does not seem to be statistically isotropic. So,
seen out to the very limits of the observable cosmos, we've mapped its largest structure, the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe according to the standard Big Bang model of cosmology. What we have discovered is shocking.
The colors we see here in the cosmic microwave background map are kind of like a weather map, showing hotter and colder, showing how hot the radiation is that's coming from different places. This is just radio noise from our own Milky Way galaxy. We're supposed to see the same number and types of hot and cold spots in all directions, because there is no up in the universe that's special. And that is sort of what we see, except not quite. This map here can be decomposed into what we call multipoles. You blur out all the little spots, and you still have the bigger ones remain. Like here is an area with a lot of blue. So when you smudge it, this will be one single big blue spot. Whereas when I smudge this, where there's a lot of red and yellow, it'll be one big blurry hot spot. On the very largest scales, we see a pattern of really
you see the name Allah?
big hot and cold spots, which line up around a special axis, which has been dubbed the axis of evil. And it's quite puzzling. Why is there a special direction in space?
This background radiation should be isotropic. It should define no special direction in the universe, and certainly not one related in any way to us.
There is, I think, a real possibility that the axis of evil and other strange things we see in the large scales of the cosmic microwave background are a hint of something really big.
One of the fundamental principles of cosmology is the Copernican principle, that we believe that the Earth does not occupy a special position.
when you look at the cosmic microwave background, it's uniform in all directions, which is what you'd expect for the universe, in fact. Another bit of evidence that there really was a Big Bang. But there have been some anomalies.
There's one point about it that the radiation isn't exactly isotropic, it's almost.
So they send up the satellite and they find out, wow, there's anisotropies out there. It's not smooth. Not only did they find anisotropies, what they found was that these anisotropies, these disturbances, these temperature disturbances throughout the universe were all pointing to the Earth.
The cosmic microwave background alignments do not define
Again,
a center,
the name of
but
Allah.
instead an axis, a preferred direction spanning the entire universe. The fact that these alignments are correlated to our own neighborhood is highly difficult to explain from within the assumptions of Big Bang cosmology. The dipole.
So what you see that X kind of mark that you just saw in the video, right? This is what everything is pointing to, the axis of the Earth in a sense. وَكُلُّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. It seems to be interesting to me from that perspective.
The dipole, which is aligned with our equinox, is usually attributed to a relative motion between our solar system and the cosmic background itself. However, the quadrupole and octupole alignments are also with respect to the ecliptic, the plane of the orbit of the planets around the sun.
Some people have actually suggested that there's structure in the cosmic microwave background radiation that's related to where the Earth is and how it's going around the sun, which is crazy, because we're nothing special.
Yet, there is this very special direction imprinted in these baby pictures of the universe, and it's pretty clear now, since many different groups have hammered at this, that it's real, it's in there in the data.
So the NASA lied. The scientists, what they're not saying. They say it's anomaly, but what they don't tell you is what is this anomaly. This anomaly is that it seems to put, like, as if the whole universe is looking towards the Earth. It's putting its radiation towards the Earth. And so the Earth does have a very special place.
What's much less clear is what it means.
We have a conflict between what is a well-established mainstream thought and what is the testimony of experiments.
But when you look at the CMB map, you also see that the structure that is observed is, in fact, in a weird way, correlated with the plane of the Earth around the sun. Is this Copernicus coming back to haunt us? That's crazy. We're looking out at the whole universe. There's no way there should be a correlation of structure with our motion of the Earth around the sun. Plane of the Earth around the sun, the ecliptic? That would say we are truly the center of the universe, unquote. That whole cosmic microwave background is pointing to us, this tiny little space in the universe, and that happens to be where we live.
The strangeness of the alignment of cosmic microwave background with the ecliptic and equinoxes of Earth led many cosmologists to believe that the Planck satellite mission would finally show these alignments to have been a mistake, a foreground that wasn't subtracted properly, or a scanning beam anomaly in the WMAP telescope. Would the axis of evil turn out to be real? Finally, on March 21st, 2013, at the headquarters of the European Space Agency in Paris, the results of the Planck satellite mission were publicly released.
Today we are going to present to you the cosmic microwave background. Progress towards the future by understanding the past. This map is a goldmine of information.
The stakes were high. If Planck were to confirm the existence of the axis of evil, it could mean the foundational principle of modern cosmology, the Copernican principle, is wrong. Planck was expected by many to show instead that the strange CMB axis of evil was nothing more than foreground contamination, or a scanning beam anomaly somehow missed by the WMAP team. We flew back to Boston to interview Max Tegmark at MIT. We asked him whether his discovery of the axis of evil had been confirmed or debunked by Planck.
It was just so exciting. I'm standing there shaving at 5 in the morning while I'm watching George Eustaphio on the live feed press conference. And when the first image comes up on the screen, I line it up with this cleaned image of the data that we had made way back in the past. And it all matches. This spot matches this spot, this one.
At MIT, we asked him whether his discovery of the axis of evil had been confirmed or debunked by Planck.
It was just so exciting. I'm standing there shaving at 5 in the morning while I'm watching George Eustaphio on the live feed press conference. And when the first image comes up on the screen, I line it up with this cleaned image of the data that we had made way back in the past. And it all matches. This spot matches this spot, this one matches this spot. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, this is so awesome. And the axis of evil is obviously there because all the big spots are still in the same places. So all these puzzling anomalies have survived.
But what about the alignments with the ecliptic and equinoxes, which Lawrence Krauss had said would mean we were really the center of the universe? We asked Max Tegmark if Planck's results had convinced him that the axis of evil actually was aligned with our ecliptic and equinoxes.
I've really changed my opinion in a major way of how I feel about our place in the cosmos. For many years, I was feeling more and more insignificant. We realized that we humans were just living on a small planet in a solar system, in a galaxy, in this universe. We just kept getting smaller. And then we realized we're not even made of the majority kind of substance, dark matter and dark energy. And then we realized that we're also very brief. Our 100-year lifespans, compared to the 14 billion year age of the universe. So how could we possibly be significant? But I've really completely changed my mind, and now I actually think we're very significant.
So now we're in a position to look at the entire microwave sky. First, we introduce the multipoles. The dipole,
That's the one with the name of
usually
Allah.
attributed to a relative motion between our local system and the CMB itself. The quadrupole, the north and south ecliptic poles, and the spring and fall equinoxes. The S-shaped line represents the plane of the ecliptic, the plane of the orbit of the planets around the sun. Notice how it neatly divides warm and cold sections of the CMB map. This is our first hint that something very unusual is going on. Now we transform our Molveda projection into a sphere and rotate our universe so that the S-shaped line of the ecliptic becomes the dark line across the center of the sphere. This plane, lying between the warm and cold areas of the CMB, will become the grid along which we fly through the entire visible universe. From the point at which space first becomes transparent and structure begins to form, through the Virgo supercluster, and finally to our own Milky Way galaxy. As we enter it, amazingly, we arrive at our own local neighborhood, our sun, and finally, our home. So does this mean that the pendulum has started to swing back away from the Copernican principle? Could this, in fact, be Copernicus coming back to haunt us?
Now, even after 3 great experiments, the last one of being Planck, they're now in denial. And they're trying to come up with some explanation. And the only way you can come up with an explanation is through things that we can't even touch or can't even don't even know if it's true, like multi-universes, like dark matter, dark energy. They'll explain these anomalies or abnormal events in the universe we have by things that just they need them to explain away the problem that they're in. And so now scientists are beginning to swing their pendulum and come to their senses that, this whole thing that we've been doing by not being able to explain things and making things up, because that's the only way it explains everything. A lot of scientists are beginning to move away from that. And we Muslims, the Muslim physicists, should also move away from that, because accepting these anomalies gives us the result that the Quran tells us. That sanurikum ayatina, we will show you our signs fil afaq, in the horizons. Literally, this projection of the radiation happened from the horizons. And one of the miracles of that is that you get a projection back showing you the name of Allah in the horizon. I mean, literally, that's what it is. Now remember, the radiation, the black, the yellow, red, the orange, green, what is that? Those are actually, before you put it doesn't come back in colors. The information in the radar, they don't come back in colors, right? They come back in numbers, in data. And then that data is converted into some sort of system which will help you visualize, okay, what is it? Then you'll be able to see which spots are hotter, which spots are colder, and so on and so forth. So, yes, now that you have some understanding of this, may be a good time to ask, do you now think that there is a significance to what looks like the name of Allah on the radiation of the cosmos? Yusabbihu lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth glorifies Allah. And so let me just show you these two verses of the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Yusabbihu lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. Whatever is in the heavens praises Allah, does tasbih of Allah, and whatever is in the earth. So the whole universe is praising Allah. But after the heavens, Allah always mentions earth, as if the earth has a special space within samawat, because obviously, in terms of the Quran, in the Quranic cosmology, let me make this clear, something that's not very clear to a lot of people. Surah Al-Mulk makes this very clear. Other parts of the Quran make this very clear. I'll show it to you right now, in fact. In Surah Al-Mulk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the first heavens, how there's 7 heavens, what is the description of the first of the heavens? Okay, the description of the first of the heavens is as-samaa ad-dunya bimasabiha. Okay, so walaqad zayyana, we have beautified everything that you see beautified in the sky. Walaqad zayyana as-samaa ad-dunya, the sama ad-dunya, the sky of the earth, which is the entire universe as we know it. وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ. We have beautified it with masabih. Masabih means lanterns, is one of the meanings. But something that gives combustion. It has some way of giving fire. So these different stars, quasars, whatever is out there. وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ. We have beautified the sky with these stars, with these lanterns. وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رَجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينَ. And of course, these have been made a rajuman lishayatin, a way to drive out the shayatin. وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ. And we have definitely made this a punishment for them. وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ, and we prepared for them عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ, a burning punishment. Okay, so as-sama ad-dunya is everything we know of the universe. All the stars is part of the first heaven. Okay, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Fussilat, سَنُرِيهِمْ, we will show them, meaning the non-Muslims, آيَاتِنَا, our signs, فِي الْآفَاقِ, in the horizons. And this is where this all information came from, the horizons. وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, and in themselves, حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ, until it is absolutely clear, أَنَّهُمْ لَهُمْ, for them, أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ, that this is the truth. أَلَمْ يَكْفِي بِرَبِّكَ أَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ, and it is not sufficient for your Lord that He is a witness over everything, that He will show all the signs until there's no doubt that this is أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ, that it is absolutely the truth. And that, now let's, before we proceed, move on to this question that I started with, that what we see as pattern, I am seeing as the yellow alif in the beginning, lam, and then ha, right? The question is this a mistake, or is this designed? And so from that, we take the help of a mathematician. And Dembski, William Dembski, the mathematician who created the idea of design inference. How do you know if a design is just happens to be a design, or it is actually something significant? So how do we tell? Well, the first point, or the first thing you look for is that, is there a unique pattern? And the second thing you look for, does it have a specification? If it has a specification, it cannot be just by mistake. So in this case, well, actually, before we go further,
facts that cause us to recognize prior intelligent activity.
I came to this by trying to look at how do we reason about design? What are the logical moves that we have to go through in order to come to a conclusion of design? So what I'm trying to do is to establish reliable, empirical, scientifically rigorous criteria for deciding whether something is in fact designed. So I was looking at the logic of it. And what I found was you need improbability and you need specification, the right sort of pattern, these objective patterns.
So let's talk about the name of Allah in the cosmic background radiation when it's taken in its larger angular perspective. You see the name of Allah. But then more important than that, in some ways, is the idea that if everything was random, then you wouldn't get large spots of hot and large spots of cold. If everything was random, it wouldn't look like that all the radiation it's as if it's facing Earth. If everything was just random, then we have to first see there's a pattern. There's definitely a pattern. And then it's something very specific. Everything is moving in a specific direction, which is towards our solar system, towards the Earth. So, and it's within the movement of the sun between the summer and the winter. Of the movement of the sun, that everything is moving within that, the X that you saw, the X mark. Okay, so that is intelligent design, because we just did design inference. There's a pattern that's unique. If there was no pattern, if everything was just random in the universe, which it is not, and this is why scientists are now falling on their face. Science is beginning to fall on its face, and this is why maybe they're taking a U-turn with science as a subject itself, because you go any further with science from where we are, it just takes you into Tawheed. It takes you into La ilaha illallah. So, before we finish, I would like you to watch one more thing. And let's do that. Now we're going to look at this video very quickly before we end today. And we're going to watch this video. It's called Ask a Spaceman. But I want you to think about this. That if the cosmic radiation is coming to Earth, if everything is within the plane of our solar system, if everything is, it's as if looking at us. This is what they're calling an anomaly. But a believer will look at this and say, no, not an anomaly, not an anomaly, especially after you've done it 3 times. The answer is not going to change the 4th and the 5th time, right? So we're in a safe place because they've spent millions of dollars, 30 years, and yes, it looks like everything is facing towards Earth. That is a fact, okay? Now, I want you to think about that and digest that in our understanding of space, because cosmology always has an effect on people's belief systems. Okay, so
back in 2002, the then President George W. Bush gave a State of the Union address, and he referenced something he called the axis of evil, which were 3 countries, Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. And that caused a stir. People talked about blah, blah, blah. A couple years later, some cosmologists were studying the cosmic microwave background. And the cosmic microwave background, or CMB, is the leftover light from the early universe. It's 13.8 billion years old. It's a baby picture of the universe. Incredibly useful cosmological tool. So much information there. They were studying the cosmic microwave background, and they spotted something a little bit funny. If you just look at the cosmic microwave background, it looks pretty much the same no matter what direction you look. In fact, it's perfectly uniform up to 1 part in 10,000. So 1 part in 10,000, any patch of the CMB looks like any other patch. The universe is isotropic, after all. But if you start looking at those 1 in 10,000 differences, you do see some fluctuations. You see tiny little bits, tiny little bumps and wiggles, a little bit hotter part, a little bit cooler part. Those bumps and wiggles, those are incredibly useful. Those are the seeds of structure. That's like a whole other show. And these researchers who are studying the cosmic microwave background noticed something funny about the pattern of these bumps and wiggles. You can use a certain statistical method, I guess you could call it a statistical method, a tool set called multiple analysis or multipole expansion. Not multiple like multiplication and division, but multipole, where you look at consecutively smaller bits of the sky and the statistics of smaller bits of the sky. So you start with the whole sky at once, that's the monopole, 1 pole. Then you look at hemispheres and you compare different hemispheres against each other. The left versus the right, the top versus the bottom, the front versus back. That's called the dipole. Then you look at quarters, and that's called the quadrupole. So that section versus that section versus that section. And then you can go even higher up to octopole, dodecapole, hexadeca. It gets complicated. Eventually we forget the names and we just say like 1,000 or 2,000, all the way up to 4,000 pole. And they noticed something funny about 2 of these, the octopole and the quadrupole, that they were aligned. And you'd expect in an isotropic universe that each one of these poles, each time you take a smaller patch and look at the distribution of patches of that size all around the sky, that the alignment of hot patches and cold patches should be totally random every time. But it wasn't. The quadrupole and the octopole were within a few degrees of each other, which just by random chance should only happen like one in 100 times. So that seemed funny. And then they noticed something else, that if you look at the cosmic microwave background above the solar system, but measurable, a little bit cooler than if you look below the solar system. And that's really messed up because in microkelvin, but measurable, a little bit cooler than if you look below the solar system. And that's really messed up because if you look at the cosmic microwave background above the solar system, it's just a little bit cooler just a tiny bit, like 10 microkelvin, but measurable, a little bit cooler than if you look below the solar system. And that's really messed up because the cosmic microwave background should know nothing about our solar system. Like, our galaxy wasn't even around when the CMB was formed. So there should be no relationship whatsoever between our solar system and the cosmic microwave background. There should be no connection whatsoever. But it's a little bit cooler when we look above and a little bit hotter when we look below. And that is aligned with the weird alignment of the octopole and the quadrupole. So we have these three things that shouldn't care about each other at all kind of lie in the same plane. And so this was the cosmological axis of evil. Three things in cosmology that are kind of working together for apparently some nefarious purposes. And this has been confirmed. So this was discovered in the WMAP experiment of the last decade and then confirmed with the Planck satellite. So totally different mission, different equipment, different strategy, different electronics, blah, 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 different teams. And the Planck team got the same result. So what's going on? Well, we honestly don't know. What is this axis of evil? Well, it could be just, maybe there's something about our solar system, and as the cosmic microwave background light comes near our solar system and into our detector, maybe there's like a cloud of dust that nobody else sees that's affecting the measurement. Maybe it's a signpost to new physics, but that seems unlikely, because if you're going to say, oh, the early universe was a really weird, wacky place, and there's new physics going on there, and that's going to make the octopole and quadrupole line up, but how does that get connected to the solar system? I mean, there's so many normal, everyday, but complicated physics between the early universe and our solar system that those shouldn't talk to each other under any reasonable theory of how things work. Or maybe it's just a statistical fluke. Are we just, random flukes by statistical?
It's not random because they already did 3 experiments, spending millions of dollars over 30 years. So it's just a matter of physicists coming to terms that they had ideas that were wrong. And if they accept the fact that, like I showed you in the beginning of the video, physics as a subject is in crisis. And the reason it's in a crisis is at the macro level and the micro level. So today we only talked about the macro level. But if they just accept there's no multi-universes, there's no dark energy, there's none of that. Or if they are, it plays a very little significance. Because right now dark energy is like 95% of everything. Which means that for everything you can't explain, or for everything you give an explanation and can't explain it, then you just say, oh, dark energy. That's not an escape that is meaningful, especially when you're getting a meaningful answer, based upon saying, hey, maybe there is something special about Earth. But that's somewhere where scientists don't want to go. So they keep calling it an anomaly.
Coincidence is just going to happen. It just happens to be the quadrupole, the octopole, and the solar system just are lined up by, lucky break. I mean, someone's got to win the lottery, I guess. We honestly don't know. I'm not too worried. I don't think, it points to new physics. But I'm not sure what the astrophysical explanation could be or what the mundane explanation would be. It might just be lucky chances. It's one of these things that we don't fully understand what's going on. We're not really losing sleep over it. No one's really losing sleep over it. But it's something to keep our eye on over the next few years. So, thank you for watching.
Okay, so let's end with this. The Copernicus thought was, or the principle was, that if you look at the whole universe, it's going to be exactly the same everywhere. And that's the first results they did get from A radiation. It was all green, right? And then when they got better equipment, they're like, wait, no, there are patches that are slightly hot, patches that are slightly cold. It's not all uniform. It's not all homogeneity. and then you have the axis of evil, where a lot of the anomalies are. There are other aspects to this where the anomalies are. And so it doesn't meet the principle of randomness. Rather, it seems that it meets the principle of intelligent design. And then, of course, not only does it meet the principle of intelligent design, so this is the quadruple axis, this is the octuple axis, but again, is this design or is this random? Does this spell the name Allah or is it just a fluke? If you say, okay, all of this can't be random, then that will, I think, is more logical based upon inference of design that I talked about, that you see a pattern like the name of Allah, but you see a pattern that's not all homogeneity, because if the universe was like this, okay, if the universe was like this, then you could say, well, there's, it's fine. It looks like it's every place, every part of the universe is basically similar to other parts of the universe, until you start actually looking at this very carefully. For example, if you look at here, you clearly see that this whole spot is about 10% of the universe. I think it was 11%. This spot is clearly colder than other parts. This part over here is clearly hotter over here, where the red is, than other parts of the universe. Same thing over here. So there are parts that are clearly more cold and more hot. And when you make you take angular results, you get the name Allah. And you also get parts that are cold, hot, cold, hot. You get parts that are that don't seem random. You kind of see a pattern, and you don't see like everything is equal everywhere, like you may have felt if you saw this. If you saw this, you may not have looked at it closely, but scientists have had 30 years looking at this closely, and the only result that they got was, they showed, well, clearly if you do the dipole, you have the red where the Earth is, right? So that's the equator, and then on the top you have more heat, and on the bottom you have more cold. Then this is no longer a universe that is just random. It goes against the principle that we were earlier talking about. So same thing with the quadruple, and quadruple. Okay, let me now just show you one last thing.
Everything is moving. In other words, all the stars in the universe are moving. How could we possibly determine if we are the center of this moving universe?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because in 2009 they set up a probe called the Planck probe. It just came back with the results in 2013 in March. I don't know if you heard about it or not.
No.
The European Space Agency set it up in cooperation with NASA. This was the third attempt that they had to nullify the data that they were finding in the cosmic microwave background radiation that permeates the whole universe, that the Earth was in the center of the universe. The first one they set up was in 1990 called the COBE probe. It came back, showed the Earth was in the center. The WMAP was the second one in 2001, came back with the same data. And what they tried to do was say that this was all an error. It was some kind of misreading, or it was there was contamination in the apparatus or the sky or whatever. So they sent up a third probe in 2009, just came back in 2013. Guess what? Same exact results. Same exact results. And what were the interpretations? Well, the Earth has to be in the center of the universe. And we have somebody quoted in our book, Lawrence Krauss of the Arizona State University, who says, yeah, this means we're in the center of the universe.
Let's pick up on that point a bit. You mentioned that the background radiation, microwave radiation in the universe, supplied data from which it became apparent that the Earth was in fact at the center of a moving universe. Explain why that is so. Why do these data confirm that?
Okay. Well, the Big Bang Theory predicts that there was an explosion 13.7 billion years ago. Okay? So if there was an explosion, then that means the explosion had to come out equal on all sides of the sphere. It had to be what they call homogeneous. Okay? And that's naturally accepted. It's like homogenized milk. Sure. You know, you shake that thing up and you can't see one place from another place. It's all homogenized. And that's what they needed for this Big Bang universe. What they found when they sent these 3 probes up, yeah, some of it was homogeneous, but it's like having a bowl full of Jell-O with 2 swords going through the middle of the Jell-O.
What are the swords?
The swords are the orientation of the cosmic microwave background radiation throughout the universe.
What do you mean by the orientation?
Okay, there's hot and cold spots they found. It's not homogeneous. There's hot and cold spots in this microwave background radiation, and if you align all these cold spots, it forms an X through the whole universe.
Unbelievable.
And guess what's in the middle?
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
This is what the data shows.
This is what the data
come on
shows.
Now. What mainstream publication recognizes
The
this?
University of Michigan, Dragon Hutterer, Craig Copey, Glenn Starkman. These are all the guys who have done all the work on this microwave radiation. They read it in their papers. They read one in 2004, 2008, 2010, and 2012, and they're reading another one on the Plump probe.
So you're saying these space probes were designed to explain away the X represented by the hot and cold
They wanted
spots.
to make sure it wasn't an accident.
Okay, so
just so you know, the X is between the moving of the sun from, as the Quran says, Masharik wal Magharib, the sun of the many wests the sun moves to, and the many easts the sun moves to. This is the X is one way to say it. I don't remember the technical term. If somebody remembers that, they can write that down in the comment section. But basically, it's coming within that spot of the whole solar system. So the sun and the earth together play a role. And then, of course, the moon as a central piece.
How many probes in total?
3 in 20 years.
And you're saying that all 3 confirmed what then?
That the Earth is in the center of the universe.
On the basis of the hot and cold spots?
Yes.
Whose alignment represents an X.
An X.
And at the center of the X is the Earth.
Right, and they call that X the axis of evil. That was coined.
Scientists call that the axis of evil.
Called it the axis of evil. That was coined in 2004 when Bush went into Iraq. Remember, he called them the axis of evil? So this cosmologist just picked it up and said, yeah, well, here's the axis of evil right here in the universe.
So, in other words, they're enraged by the finding.
Oh, yeah.
Because it upsets their worldview, which has to displace the Earth's special position in the universe.
Yeah.
Okay, because, so as we're talking about this special space where the whole universe's radiation seems to be going, let me just remember and talk about this, and also remind you that those Muslim brothers and sisters who believe in the flat earth completely falls in the face of these verses of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِرَبِّ الْمَشَارِكِ وَالْمَغَارِبِ إِنَّا لَقَادِرُونَ. Allah says, I swear by the Rabb of Masharik, the many easts and the many wests. Inna laqadirun. And then Allah says, Rabbus samawati wal ardi wa ma baynahuma wa Rabbul mashariq. And the Lord of the heavens and the earth and whatever is between them, and the Lord of the easts. Rabbul mashriqaini wa Rabbul maghribain. And the Lord of the 2 easts and the 2 wests. And another place Allah mentions it singular. Why? Now let me show you why. That there, you know how some parts, as time goes by, what happens? Days get longer, nights get short. Then nights get longer, days get short. Because the sun itself, every farmer in the world knows this. Every farmer in the world knows this. But the flat earthers don't know this. Okay? And when the collapse of the city happens, you have to know this. That when the winter is there, the sun is at one level. And then it reaches a high level in the summer. And autumn is in the middle. So when it says Rabbul Mashriqaini wa Rabbul Maghribain, the Lord of the 2 easts and the 2 wests, it's referring to the high and the low. And when it's referring to Rabbul Mashriqaini, when it's referring to the east and the west in plural, it's talking about the day by day gradual moving up, and then the day by day gradual moving down of the sun. So this creates an X okay, from between the east and the west. So this is what he was talking about, the X. Okay, so let me end by saying, now it is up to you, the viewer, to decide that, is this a fluke, or is this non-random? It is not random, and that it makes sense then saying that no, there must be some explanation that we need to give. And I'll be doing more videos to go into this into more detail. And of course, I leave you all with the idea that it's not just that it's not random, but it also spells the name of Allah Azza wa Jal.